Hello, welcome to today's webinar, Dean's Dialogue, Learning from Alumni. My name's Dr. Ailsa Craig, and I'm the Interim Dean for the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences. We are really pleased today to welcome Jennifer Dodge, who holds a BA in Linguistics and Psychology from Memorial, and she's the current president of Spin Master Entertainment, and she's joining us from Toronto. For those of you who don't know, Spin Master Entertainment is a multi-billion-dollar children's entertainment company with 28 offices worldwide. They're best known for PAW Patrol, which airs in 170 countries and is the leading preschool toy franchise in Canada, Australia, Mexico, Spain, France, and Italy. Now, before we speak with Jennifer, we'll begin with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the lands on which Memorial University's campuses are situated are in the traditional territories of diverse Indigenous groups, and we acknowledge with respect the histories and cultures of the Beothuk, Mi'kmaq, Innu, and Inuit of this province. We encourage everyone to reflect on the lands where you're located and the Indigenous peoples for whom those lands are traditional territory. It is my great pleasure to welcome Jennifer Dodge back to her alma mater, even if it's only virtually. I'm going to change my layout so I can see you a little bit better here. That's much better. Jennifer graduated with her BA in Linguistics and Psychology, as I mentioned before, in 1997. She's worked with Spin Master since 2009, with the exception of a 2-year stint at Nickelodeon from 2015 to 17, I think. Recently promoted to president of Spin Master, and last summer she made the leap into Hollywood as producer of PAW Patrol, the movie. So Jennifer's kindly agreed to talk to us today about the decisions that she's made throughout her career and that have led to her current position and the role her BA's played in her life personally and professionally. Now, before we begin, hold that thought, Jennifer. I've got some technical matters I'm just going to get out of the way. We have just under an hour with you, and the event will conclude at 1:30 Newfoundland time, so that's noon for you. And in the first half of this webinar, I'm going to be asking Jennifer questions about her career and how she's transitioned from being a student in the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences here at MUN to one of the top jobs in Canadian children's entertainment. Once I've finished the question and answer session that we're having, we're going to then open it up for about 30 minutes of questions from you, from the audience. And if you have questions for Jennifer, you've got 2 options. So you can come on screen and ask it directly, or you can type the question in the chat function directly to Janet Heron, and Janet or I will read your question for you. If you want to come on screen to ask Jennifer your question, just indicate that in your message to Janet, and she'll then announce you by name when it's your turn to ask your question. Don't forget to turn on your mic whenever you're asking your question, when it's your turn. We do also have a few students who are standing by who will be joining us on screen for the second half of the program. But don't wait until the very end to type your questions, because if we have your questions sooner, then we're more likely to get to your questions. I think that's all the technical things that I have to do in advance, and we can jump in. So welcome, Jennifer. I'm so glad that you're able to join us for this today, and so glad that you're able to give us some of your time.
Thank you, Ailsa. It's so nice to be here.
We asked you if you could join us to give our students a chance to hear how a graduate from our faculty has made the transition from a student who's looking for work to a professional who's got such a thriving career. So the careers that people are able to pursue with a Bachelor of Arts degree are really wide-ranging. And that means that the paths from graduation into different careers can be influenced by so many different things. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about the connections between your education as a linguistics and psych student to the work you do. So with that in mind, I'm wondering first if you can tell us a little bit about your current job as president of Spin Master Entertainment. My understanding is it's got a current market cap of $5.04 billion. What does the typical day or work week look like for you, given that? Or what does a good day look like, or a bad day?
Yeah, it's all the days are busy. So there's 3 divisions of Spin Master. We're like a global toy and entertainment company. And we call our divisions TED. So there's toy, entertainment, and digital. So there's 3 presidents, of which I'm one. And I run all the entertainment business. So it's large. At any given time, we have 6 to 8 TV series in production, feature film, short form, digital, like, we have YouTube channels that we're populating. So it's super busy. To like summarize, my job responsibilities are basically to like source ideas, develop content, develop new IP, develop new characters and worlds and series. So everything from development to like pitching and selling the show to broadcasters around the world, producing, overseeing the production, final delivery, global distribution for like to multiple platforms in every territory. As you said, like PAW Patrol is in like 170 territories. We have a Netflix series that's in 190 territories globally. So, there's all that part to manage. And then the other part of my job involves what we call consumer products. So anything that we don't make as a toy manufacturer, I'm also in charge of like, so finding those partners that make the bed sheets and the sneakers and all the cute little Paw Patrol things that you see with characters on, along with our partners at Paramount, Nickelodeon. So that's kind of like the general scope. I have just outside my door here in our studio in downtown Toronto, about 60 direct team members. So all of our producers and production managers we have a whole accounting team, a whole legal team, our distribution team. So they're all here. And then they oversee, like I said, probably 8 to 10 productions at any given time. And then we oversee the animation studios that do those. So we have animation studios working here in Toronto, 2 animation studios in Vancouver, one in Japan. So animation studios that are like vendors or partners. So we oversee all of that creative work and the output. So on a given day, I can do anything from like being in a corporate budget meeting with my other presidents talking about that $5 billion market cap. In fact, like I spent most of the last week getting ready for our year end, our like, talk to shareholders, investor presentation. So that kind of like corporate part of my job. And then this afternoon, I'll spend at least an hour with the team looking at artwork for a new show and approving artwork and giving feedback, or I might be reading a script. So it really is like very wide ranging from the most creative to like the most business, strategy part of the job. So it's every day is busy and every day is a little bit different.
Wow, that's a lot. That's really interesting that you get to do that kind of wide-ranging work over the course of a day.
Yeah.
Um, I'm also with the breadth and the variety that's there in terms of the number of countries and languages and all of these different divisions. What kind of strategy went into creating that kind of success? I think you've joked before that you just knew that people loved puppies, but I think probably there's more to it than that. Just,
There is, but it is true. Like everyone loves puppies, especially children. So at the time when we were developing Paw, which really, was kind of starting in around 2010, that we first had the original idea of these puppies who do jobs in the real world and rescue citizens from, danger, very child safe danger. We were really thinking about how do we create a series for preschoolers. And when we talk about preschoolers, we really talk about 2 to 5 year olds that feels like something like their older sibling might watch. So that kind of action, adventure, superhero kind of series that maybe their older brother or sister watch that they would enjoy, that was safe for them, that had themes that were appropriate to them. And when we thought about dogs, it all came together so organically because, dogs do jobs in real life. Like we know fire dogs, we know police dogs, we know, we know water rescue dogs, and especially if you're from Newfoundland. So those Coast Guard dogs, all of that were like, they exist in the real world. So it makes sense. It's relevant. It's like something that a young kid can understand. So we wanted to give the feeling of an action adventure show with transforming vehicles and like fun tools and gadgets and heroic missions that made really little kids feel like, no matter how small you are, you can do big things. So that was the idea. We felt like that's so global, right? Like that resonates everywhere. And there's first responders everywhere around the world. And so there's not a kid, no matter where you grow up, that doesn't understand that concept and also does can understand like community and serving community and reaching out in your community. And then puppies, obviously, there's not a child in the globe that doesn't want a puppy. So that was really, the underlying strategy, like the creative journey was really about telling those kind of stories that felt like super aspirational for really little kids.
Mm.
Um, and that was, kind of the beginning concept of it.
That's great. Yeah. Um, and last year, you made the transition to film, and you yourself were a producer on Paw Patrol, the movie, which grossed to over
Yes.
135 million US, yeah? And you had characters voiced by stars like Kim Kardashian and Jimmy Kimmel. How do you enjoy the movie business? Do you have any highlights from that experience?
It was so much fun. I mean, we did it all in a pandemic and in a lockdown. So it was like a very unusual way to make your first movie for sure. So myself and my fellow producers here have, each of us have 20 plus years of experience in animation, but for TV. None of us had made a movie before. Thankfully, we had the most glorious, amazing director, Cal Brunker, who is also Canadian, who helmed the movie, and he had made movies before and worked at a company in California called Illumination that does little movies like the Minions and certain like big movies like that. So he really like guided us and our process, but it was so fun because we really learned that, even 20 years in animation, the pipeline was very different. Like technically how you do it is very different. The process was very different. So it was so great to, kind of 20 years into a job where you feel like you know what you're doing to really not know what you're doing. It was a lot of fun to like learn something new. And then of course, when you have a property like Paw, which it's like crazy. It's like 90% awareness. Like basically, unless like, anyone who has small children in their lives know Paw Patrol. So approaching the Kim Kardashians, the Jimmy Kimmels, the Tyler Perrys was super easy because their kids are already fans. We have always this like ongoing list of what celebrities are talking on what late night shows about their kids watching Paw Patrol. And so it was great because everybody wants to like do something that their kids love. And actors and late night show hosts and Kim, like a lot of what they do isn't child appropriate or like they don't involve their kids in. So they were really just thrilled to do something that their kids love. So it was way easier than we thought to get all these like amazing names. So it was really fun. It was disappointing because like I only met Kim over Zoom for that whole thing. And like every teenage girl in my life was like, "Do you know Kim Kardashian?" I'm like, "Well, not exactly." But I did go to LA 2 weeks ago and maybe met her in person. So that was really nice. She's very cute. So yeah, so that was it was just so fun and it was so rewarding and yeah, it was definitely like, the highlight of my career so far was getting to make that movie for sure, no doubt.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah, that transition from knowing people on the screen, and you're like, oh, look, you're so much larger than when I last saw you.
Exactly. And we made this movie like mostly on computer monitors. So the first time we screened it on the big screens in post production with masks on, there was only a few of us allowed in the room. And now all of a sudden we're seeing it big. We're like, oh my gosh, like we're seeing things like felt like for the first time. And then we realized like this is a really strange way to make a movie. It's like on your computer screens for, 2 years. But yeah, it was so exciting.
Well, and clearly it worked. So even if it was a strange way to do it, yeah. Um, so I'm wondering if we can jump back to your time at Memorial. Oh, we have a
Yeah.
great picture up. So you graduated with a BA in linguistics and psychology.
Yes.
What drew you to pursue that program as a student at Memorial?
So it took, first of all, academia is like a journey, right? It's like never a straight line. So I actually started doing a science degree. So
Hmm.
coming out of high school, I loved chemistry and biology and math. And, back in the 90s, in the early 90s when I was graduating from high school, it was a real push at that time to get like girls into science, right? It was like, and so everyone was like, really like, go do science degree. Okay, I'm going to do that. And I got into my second year and hit organic chem. And that was it for me. I was done. I was like, I'm doing phys chem, organic chem, biochem. I mean, probably one of the few people with an arts degree who has electives in like phys chem, like it. So I did 2 years of science, realized it wasn't for me. I didn't love it, and I found it, to be honest, just really hard. And so I'm like, okay, there's a lot of other people maybe meant to be scientists and not me. But at the time, I was doing like a creative writing English course. I was really loving it. And I had taken a linguistics course as an elective and had this really great professor and just was like, this is a really fun course. I'm really enjoying it. And so I just at one point decided to switch focus and do a linguistics degree, but I really was enjoying the psych courses that I was doing too. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do linguistics and psychology. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do, but I had thought like maybe I'll do a master's in speech pathology. I really love children. I love to work with children. I would do like volunteer at the Janeway. When you guys have a beautiful Janeway now, but I was the old Janeway when I was there. Um, and so that was something that like was interesting to me, and I was really enjoying my humanities experience way more than the science courses that I was doing. Yeah, and just hit a couple of linguistics courses. I was like, yeah, I love this. This is really great. I love language. So the idea of like early childhood development, those psych courses, like really fascinating reading acquisition that paired like really nicely with linguistics. And so that really was my intention, was to do a master's in speech pathology was my original thought when I got that degree.
Well, life happens while you're busy making plans, I
Ex-
suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's really I hear time and time again from people about like how important it is to follow where your interests lie. Like it might be one thing for people to say, "Oh, it's important to do this," whether the push is for science or the push for whatever it is. But if it's not something that you're getting something out of, then you figure out what's going to work for you. Do you have any particular fond memory or moment that you can think back on from your time here that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, so many, Um, I did this course called War and Aggression with Elliot Layton that like was so hard to get into. Everybody wanted to do it. I still think about that course. Like that's how good it was. Like that is, I remember every book that I read. I like it was so fascinating, and he was such an incredible lecturer. And so like for me that was, my favorite course that I took. And then just really great memories, honestly, at the student center, like playing cards between classes and that kind of stuff. It was like such a nice, like social time as well. So yeah, outside of my classes, probably playing 120s in the student centers. My fault. It's, that's not probably the most correct answer, but it was a really nice time.
No, well, I actually think that that's really important. Like the ways that we have the community on campus
Yeah,
that is central to what we're up to, right? So,
yeah,
um, yeah, and there are a lot of people who really enjoyed that anthropology course with Dr. Layton. That's it's
so good. Yeah.
yeah. So, how did like a lot of BA grads, the connections between your education and your career aren't, it's not part of a predetermined pathway. Did you know as a student where you want, you said you were interested in speak language pathology, and so you were pretty sure about that, or how did you get onto the career path that led you where you are today? So if you're like, I'm going to do this master's work, I'm going to do speech language pathology, I'm going to work with kids, and no, so what happened? What was the entry point?
It took me it took me a long time to do my BA. I took like a year off here or there, like, took a year off, worked, did that kind of thing, did some part-time courses, and also was just like, enjoying like being in my 20s in St. John's, and so it took me a while to do it. And during that time, I knew I could do the master's, but I wasn't sure about it. I was like already like, I'm not sure this is something I'll really like love to do. And I wasn't sure I wanted to go back to school after taking like too long basically to do my BA. I was like, do I really want to like, go back to school right now? And I was like excited to get out in the world. And what happened was I thought, you know what? I'm going to take a year off from work. And then if I wanted to apply for my master's, I'll apply. Like, if not, we'll see what happens. And then I was, kind of right before convocation, I get a call from another Newfoundlander who is here in Toronto, and they owned and ran a craft service business. So serving food on set, like basically driving a cube van at 4 in the morning to movie sets and television sets and feeding the crew all day, snacks and coffee and that kind of stuff. So I got a call from a friend like, they really need people to work. Do you want to come to Toronto and just do it? And I thought, I'll just do it for the summer. So me and another friend just like packed up the Honda Civic, drove from St. John's to Toronto, crashed on her mom's like couch, and I started working on film and television sets. And I did that for about, I don't know, about 9 months. And I was like, the whole TV thing seems really fun. And at the very end, I was working on a kids show and I was really enjoying it. It was a live action kids show. And I went to the producers at the end of the season and I said, I really enjoy this. I really like this crew in the show. I have a degree. I can do more than serve food. Like, do you have a job for me? And she's like, I don't, but I know someone who might. And she introduced me to a man by the name of John Delmage, who he and his partners had started a company called Decode Entertainment. They were looking for, I mean, I'd sound so Mad Men, but literally like a girl to answer the phones. Like that's what they were looking for. And so I interviewed and I was hired to answer the phones for 3 weeks. And I was there for 9 years. And that company grew to be like, it's called Wild Brain today. It was called DHX Media. And it's one of the biggest media companies in Canada. And so I started there answering phones, worked my way up, was on reception, and like, again, dating myself, scripts would come off the fax machine and I would read them and I would like have ideas and I would go to like this woman who was the vice president of development and production. So all I really knew was that she seemed to make all the creative decisions and that seems really cool to me. So I would just go and like, hey, I read this script. I have some ideas. She's like, do you know? Yeah, like what do you think? She's like, actually, that's pretty good. How about you stop answering phones and you like, we'll give you an entry level script coordinator on like one of our shows. So, and this company only made children's entertainment. So all cartoons and animation for children. So that was how I ended up in entertainment. It really was, not something that I planned for. It was really something that happened. But in that job answering phones, I saw this role that this woman had, and I was like, that job looks amazing. I want to do that. And I worked my way up. And so 9 years later, I was working directly for her. I was her right hand. And then, that was the kind of start of my career journey in children's entertainment.
What a great story. And it just highlights the ways that it's hard to predict and you can trace backwards sometimes much better than you can predict forwards what the connections are. Thank you so much for this. I want to make sure that we have time
Sure.
for the students who have questions. So I'm going to introduce one of the first students. So the first person that we've got coming on is Kat Flynn, and Kat's pursuing a BA with a major in English and a minor in gender studies and a diploma in screen and stage technique. So do we have Kat? Ah, I see a little square. Kat, is your mic on? Oh, there you are.
Can you
Hello.
see?
Yes, yes, we can see you and hear you. Welcome.
That's great. Hi, thank you so much for chatting with us, Jennifer. Your story is really quite interesting. I love that you like the way that you approached academia and your life by just following the thing that you were interested in, not like forcing yourself to go fast in school and not forcing yourself to do science. I think that's really admirable, and that's kind of how I've approached my degree, so that's nice. So my question for you is, was there a time before you began working with Spin Master that was particularly challenging in terms of pursuing your career goals? And if so, what did you do to keep yourself motivated?
That's a great question. Yeah, right before I came to Spin Master in 2009, I had left the company that I had started at, and I did 2 years at another company called Cookie Jar, and it wasn't a great experience. And I, for a minute, kind of regretted leaving the job of the company of 9 years and wondered if I'd made the right decision. And ultimately, decided, they wanted to kind of teach me the business side because I was a creative through like all my career. Once I got off answering phones, I really was a creative executive, story executive. Like that was really my path. And so they wanted me to do the business side, like financing, like how you put a show together financing wise. And I wasn't really that interested in it. But I just thought, you know what, maybe one day I'm gonna need this. Like maybe it will just round me out. And so I did it, even though I didn't love it. And that really set me up for the job at Spin Master because when they approached me, they were really looking for someone to like launch an entertainment division. They didn't have an entertainment, they were only a toy company. And so I had to use like all that knowledge of financing and things that like maybe weren't that exciting to me was what like ultimately got me the big job that I really wanted to do. So that I think that was like what motivated me was just like, you know, seeing that like I could round myself out from like a knowledge and skill base and not necessarily be like that excited about it at the time, but that it would lead me to something else.
Totally, yeah, that makes sense. I love that. Yeah, I love thinking about something that you don't like that much, but like as it being possibly helpful in the future.
Yeah,
Yeah, you.
thank you.
Thanks so much, Kat. And I see we've got Kelsey now joining us. Kelsey Downer is pursuing a BA Honors in Psychology, a minor in Gender Studies, and a certificate in Criminology. Welcome, Kelsey.
Hello. I don't know if you can see me yet.
We
I may
can't
have
see you. You have a lovely blue outline when you're speaking, but you're not actually there yet.
be patient, please, with this internet that I have. It's coming, hopefully. Well, hopefully at least if you can hear me. Oh, you can see me now, I think.
Yes.
Um, Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was so inspirational and really, really, really interesting. I'm curious how your degree led you to where you are now. So what do you think sort of that your post-secondary education did to prepare you for what you're doing at Spin Master now?
That's a great question. I think one of the most important things that like again, I think like looking backward, like I didn't see it looking forward, but looking backward is that most of the shows that I make, and certainly most of the success that I've had has been in preschool. And you can't tell stories to preschoolers without understanding where they're at developmentally, understanding like what their vocabulary abilities are, also like developmentally what they can handle from like an emotional message or a pro-social message. So all that focus that I did that I thought I was going to use, to do a speech pathology, all that developmental psychology, those linguistics, all those English courses, all of that really, really grounded me in like the ability to really tell stories to small children. And also when you make preschool shows, you work a lot with educational consultants and they talk a lot about ages and stages of development. So I felt like I already had like a short I had a shorthand and I understood the terminology that they were using and could apply it to storytelling. So, it ended up really like directly, I think, serving me as far as like telling stories to that young audience. So it was like a much more direct correlation to that degree than I think I anticipated in a way.
Yeah, that's amazing. I've worked with preschool students as well, so I always find it interesting when people talk about, the developmental stages because it is so important, right, to have that knowledge. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelsey. And I see that Emily is here. Hi, Emily. Emily Murphy's pursuing a BA in linguistics with a minor in psychology, like Jennifer.
Yay.
Hi, thank you so much. I have a little nephew who is a big fan of PAW Patrol, so it's really cool to see somebody who's actually behind that. And I love your story because I actually started with a science degree as well, and I also want to do speech. So it's like,
Oh,
maybe
great.
maybe there's other things. So, my question is, what other jobs would you say you could do with the skills and expertise that you've gained through this field and this occupation and everything that you've done?
That's a great question. I think up until a few years ago, I probably would have said like, really, what I know how to do is make TV. Like really, that's what I know how to do. And but I think over the last few years, with the experience that I've had, running this division um, and also my time at Nickelodeon is like, I think I can run a network or a streaming service. I think I'm probably qualified to do that quite well. I think also the work that I've done as part of a toy company, I think I could do a lot on the toy company side as far as like strategy and all that. So I think anything around kind of like kids, consumer products, toys, broadcast, that kind of stuff. And I do hope to make more movies as well at some point, and maybe I'll focus on that at some point more than the other stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It strikes me also, it's interesting what you were saying, Jennifer. You were saying, oh, I can apply this there and I can apply that there. And that's something too about you can see backwards, but you can't necessarily see forwards. The ways
Yes.
that degrees in HSS will prepare you for work, not necessarily a particular career. And it's like, so what are you going to do with your degree? Well, exactly. What are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
You can apply it in all sorts of different ways. I'm wondering, Janet, do we have Hannah here today, or are we going to be turning
Yes,
over?
we do.
Okay,
One second. We're going to just bring Hannah on now. Oops.
great.
Is that Hannah? Yeah.
Yep, that's Hannah. So we can't see you, Hannah. I don't know if you can hear us. There you are. Hi, Hannah. Hannah Lee's a communication studies major here. Welcome, Hannah. We can't hear you. Is your microphone on?
Me now?
Looks like she's at the library.
Yes.
I'm gonna
Yes,
say,
I'm in between classes, so I came into the library. Um, Thank you guys so much for doing this, to give us more information about like the different things we can do with our degree. Um, I wanted to ask Miss Dodge, now that things are growing more competitive, and a lot of times it's difficult to just enter employment with only a bachelor's. I wanted to ask you, what sort of additional certificates or diplomas or other things do people in your workplace that graduated with a humanities and social sciences degree typically have?
yeah. Well, in the entertainment business, people have a lot of different kinds of degrees. So some of the people that I work with here have degrees from, especially Ryerson. They have radio and television degrees, or they have degrees, some of them in like creative writing. We have people here who have, degrees from animation studios. And then in the larger like toy company, it really ranges. Like we have engineering students here. We actually have two from MUN who work here
Oh,
as engineers. They're in the design field, so they're like design engineers, and they do have a very cool job. But they have engineering degrees from MUN. So really in entertainment, people come from like so many different kinds of backgrounds from a degree standpoint. Maybe they have a theater arts degree. So as far as like, adding certificates, I don't really know, I'm not really an expert in that. But also I would say, entering the workforce, especially in like big companies, entry level jobs like normally just have a bachelor degree, and so it's often enough, and then you learn on the job. So there's always those like entry level positions with a humanities degree, and a lot of people start off at Spin Master as executive assistants or coordinators, and they come in that way, and then they learn from their people around them. Then they apply for the next job up and the next job up. So sometimes really the learning, after the first degree, sometimes the learning happens on the job, I would say as well.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much. So we have, it looks like Daphne is going to be joining us to ask a question. Daphne, will you be turning on your camera?
Can you hear me? Can you see me?
I can hear you. Now we can see you. Now both. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing, Jennifer. The reason I was excited to join your webinar for a couple of reasons. One, I applied, as a matter of fact, to work at Spin Master about, I would say, 20 years ago. My background is in credit collection and risk management, and was really excited about the position. But at the time, I was a single mom living in Newmarket, and the commute was just too much for me. So I unfortunately had, but I really, now looking back, I wish I didn't. I wish I was out. I wish that would act for me, but sounds like an amazing company. The other reason is I'm now in Newfoundland, and I just became a career strategist for a new initiative here in Newfoundland called Study and Stay NL program, where we're working with international students who are in the last year of graduation, helping them to find positions and jobs here within the province. So the fact that you know Newfoundland and worked in Newfoundland, I just wanted to kind of reach out, and I'm looking to take that my role to the next level, and looking to find an onboarding. I'm looking to put together an onboarding process for our program to help international students really integrate into our society. And we have a really big labor shortage here and everywhere in Canada, as I understand. And I just wanted to get your feedback on, as a student and as an executive. I was an executive myself in the corporate world for 30 years, but I'm kind of doing my own thing now. I'm kind of trying to figure out a way to reach out to local companies, to reach out to local executives, and kind of create a community that supports our university, not just for international students, but for all students, to really come out of university with a little bit more tools in the toolbox. What suggestions do you have, or any direction that would be more than welcome?
Yeah, I really don't know if I'm, the most kind of qualified person to answer that. I have to be honest, I never worked in Newfoundland outside of, bartending when I was doing my bachelor's degree. So, I think, reaching out to other companies is probably a way to start, but I'm sorry, I don't know if I really can probably answer your question very well, because I don't really have an expertise. I think that you need for that question.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. A wonderful story. Really exciting.
Good luck, and good luck to you.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Daphne. And do we have any additional questions from people who are attending? I don't see anything in the chat here.
We do have a couple. Chad wants to know, he's curious as to what a movie producer does exactly.
Me too.
That's a great question. Well, there's different kinds of producers. So on the movie, I was like, the producer, like produced by. So basically what that means is all of the decisions. So every decision, from like where we're spending our money, the budget, all of that, every creative decision, how we cast it, who gets what role, making like notes on every single creative element, all the way through the story idea, the script, all the designs, all the voice performances, choosing the composer, choosing the music pieces, figuring out what song is the right song and who should sing it. So basically every creative decision and every business decision lies with that overall producer role. And then there's different kinds of producers. So we have line producers in animation, and they're really about like that scene by scene animation pipeline, shot by shot, how it goes through the pipeline. It's a much more technical producer job. And then I have two co-producers who are I call like my right and left brain here at Spin Master Entertainment. So my senior vice president of production operations was one of the co-producers, and my senior vice president of creative. So basically one of them was like the creative right hand. She was in everything with the director, feeding things to me. What do you think of this? I don't think you're going to like this. Problem solving. And the other really was like more in charge of like that budget and all the conversations with our animation studio of like, how much can we change this and how much will it cost? So Some producers are very technical or very operations. Some are very creative. And the overall movie producer is just like the decision maker across all those things, basically.
I have always wondered that. Thank you. So
There's also so many kinds of producers, like executive producers sometimes don't do anything, or they've done the business deal to begin with, or they're attached to the property in some other way. So the producer credit is a very it's a very broad, term for sure. Can mean a lot of
okay.
things. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Do we have any other questions, Janet?
We do have another question from Chad because he's got so many questions, but I'm wondering if any of the students have any other questions for Jennifer.
I see one in the chat too here,
Oh, do
Brian.
you?
Bryant, yeah. So the question says, with all the recent acquisitions across all segments of M&E and gaming, do you see the strategic focus for Spin Master to broaden or focus on the existing portfolio of IP? So that's a great question. So for people who don't know, so M&E is like mergers and or media and entertainment. So our acquisitions are like, kind of acquiring property or acquiring companies. And are we going to focus on existing portfolio of IP? So that's a great question. So yeah, so in our existing portfolio of IP, we have things like PAW Patrol, we have a show called Mighty Express, we have Bakugan, and then but we're always developing new ideas. So we have an existing portfolio, but we spend a lot of time both on the toy side and on the entertainment side doing what we call development. So at any given time, I have a whole development team out there. They're working on 20 different ideas at a time. We're writing scripts, we're looking at designs, like, is this a show? Is this a movie? Could this be a show? What about this one? And so we're always trying to create new intellectual property while like maintaining the ones that we have. And like PAW Patrol has been around for 10 years. How do we keep it around for another 10? On the one hand, and then like, let's try a whole bunch of fun other things over here. So in media and entertainment today, there's like so much appetite for content, right? There's so many streamers, there's so many digital platforms, traditional platforms. So everybody wants content. So we're making all different kinds of content and trying out lots of new ideas, and hope we'll get another hit that we can work on for years to come as well.
Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you. And I think Kelsey had another question, and then I think Hannah did after Kelsey. Yeah, okay.
Yes, I do. Can you hear me okay?
I can. I think somebody else may have their mic on too. We had a little bit of feedback. So
I muted everyone else.
Oh, okay. So Kelsey, go ahead.
So Jennifer, I'm an opera singer. I did my master's in music. I'm just wondering if there's ever like opportunities for singers within Spin Master.
Yeah, for sure. That's so fascinating. A very good friend of mine, actually from Gander, who I did drama with in junior high. His name is Dean Burry, and he actually has he's like a big opera guy up here now. And he worked like in children's opera, and so I love that. So mostly the singers that we work with, we don't work with directly. They're through our music supervisor company. So on every show that we have and every movie that we do, there's a role called music supervisor. It's usually a company. And the music supervisors find all the composers and then all the singers. So like right now we're like working on a very secret property. And we wanted like a very kind of like Disney Frozen style song. And so they found the composer to write the song, and then they like sent us like all different kinds of singers. Like, do you want a younger sounding girl, older, like different takes? So usually our music supervision companies find the singers that work on all of our shows. I'm also jealous of anyone that can sing because I'm tone deaf. So
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I appreciate it.
Hannah, did you have another question as well? And your microphone is off. Oh, there it is.
Sorry
Great.
about that.
No, that's great.
Yes, my other question from Ms. Dodge was whether, especially in the departments of writing, marketing, and management, if in her case, and she needed to, um, she did do that training for the business side of things. Does she feel that um, we should have some sort of business background to give us an edge in the employment area?
That's a that's such a great question. You know, I had no training in business and
Mhm.
really learned on the job. But I will say, like, I'm endlessly impressed by my marketing colleagues who have marketing degrees and like their understanding of business. And so I really rely on like those colleagues to kind of like help me, you know, in those like bigger business strategy things. And my daughter's in high school now, and they do like real business courses in high school with like accounting and like things that are so valuable to like any job that you do. And I'm like, wow, I wish when I was in high school we had business courses. So, and I wish I had taken some business courses, to be honest, during the course of my degree, even if it's not another certificate or anything. But I think almost in any kind of job that you do, whether it's creative, whether it's strategy, whether it's operational, I think any kind of foundation in business is only helpful. I spent like a long time like learning the vocabulary of business so that, you know, sitting in the boardroom as a creative, I could like, you know, follow along and add to the conversation. It actually was like quite probably one of the steeper learning curves I have. So I think yeah, if I could go back in a time machine, I probably would have taken a few business courses, and I think it would have served me well.
Oh, thank you.
The only business course I took in high school was grade 9 typing, but it is still one that I use every single day.
I mean, okay, this is so terrible, but that was the class that I like played hooky from so much. I was like, when I lived in Gander in grade 9, and then it was the most useful thing that I ever had. And then I was like, why was I such a jerk about it? Because like I was like, typing is so stupid. But we didn't have computers back then, so we didn't know how much. I was like, when am I ever gonna type? Like really? Oh, all day, every day is the answer.
Yeah, more things that we couldn't have predicted. Um,
No, we didn't know.
no, not a chance. My goodness. Cell phone. What? We live in the
I know. I'm
future.
in this audience. Like literally, we did not have computers in high school. I know that makes me sound really old.
Yeah, me too. Janet, what other questions do we have? Do we have any more questions in the chat?
We do have another question. We have a question from Sarah, and I am going to ask it because she is in a place where she can't ask it, but now I'm trying to find it and I can't find it. Hold on one second. Do you want to ask that question that Andrea asked? Elsa, I think she put it in the chat.
See if I can find. Yes, it's hard for me to see. Andrea's dying to know which pup is your favorite, Jennifer.
Oh, that's easy. Rubble. Like that's like so easy because I've always wanted a bulldog. I'm quite allergic to them, so I can only have like non-allergenic poodly things. So I always wanted a bulldog. So that's why Rubble is a bulldog. He's also the funniest. So he's definitely my favorite. Unlike children, you can have a favorite pup. Like it's not like your kids. You can
Were you able to find that question, Janet?
No, I've just asked her to send it to me again. But
Okay.
I know that there is a question here. How do you approach shows with an equity, diversity, and inclusion lens? For animated shows, is that a consideration to represent different races, genders, and non-binary characters?
Yes, yes, yes. So it's so important, especially when you're talking to kids, right? So we need to like put a mirror up and have as many children as possible see themselves in what we do. So it's something we take very seriously and something honestly like we didn't do that well 10 years ago and we're doing better now and we can still do even better. So yeah, even in animation. So you know, in a show like Paw Patrol, if you like, if there's pups and there's humans, so we really try to have diversity across all of our human characters. Again, I think something we didn't do that well in the early days, and in the movie, I think we really, I think we really did that well. But even in an animated program where, let's just say they were all animals and not humans, you really want that voice cast to really be diverse. Like it's so important. So it doesn't matter whether it's like a show all about, little monsters, or it's a show all about dogs, or there's humans. So we spend a lot of time, and we actually work with diversity and inclusion experts in every series that we do. But it really has to actually start from the writers and the creators. So if you're only getting your ideas from one kind of person, then those are the stories that you're going to tell. So it really starts with storytellers. So we really go as far abreast as we can to have different storytellers come to us with their ideas of the kind of stories that they want to tell, the kind of show ideas they have, or books they've published. So that's been really important. And then even with PAW, showing different abilities. So we have this beautiful Bernese Mountain Dog that came in our dino rescue theme, and he had a wheelchair, and we actually worked with both a human wheelchair expert company and a company that works with dogs with disabilities, that we made sure like the wheelchair was designed properly. In our show Mighty Express, one of our lead characters, she's in a wheelchair. Again, we work with experts. That wheelchair is like accurate to like a real world experience. So it's something that also our broadcasters, our production partners, keep us really honest, because they also, it's important to them. So if we ever miss, we have people, checking, doing the checks and balances. So for our standpoint, gender, race, ability, like we really try to, like I said, put a mirror up to as many children as we can in the world, so that everybody feels like they can see themselves or find themselves.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you for that question, and thank you for that work too. And I love the idea that somebody's job could be a diversity and inclusion expert.
Oh yeah, there's so many of them, like really, and like in experts in different fields. So it's such interesting work that goes on in that field today.
Yeah. And I think, if I'm understanding correctly, Janet's found the question that she was
I have.
looking for, and that might be the last one that we've got time for.
I think it will be the last one. So this is
Okay.
from Sarah, and she's in the last semester of her BA in Communication Studies, and she's wondering if Jennifer has any advice for new grads entering creative fields.
Yeah, it it is that, you take any job to start. That would be a big one for me. Like I took a job serving food. Like I served coffee on film sets. I answered the phones. I did the photocopying. Like in a creative field, like what you want to do is get yourself in front of the people who can give you the job you want eventually. But it's often not the first job you have is the one that you want. And I think it's like so important to just get out there, get experience, get exposure, introduce yourself to as many people. If you're in like a major center, there's always groups. Like if you're just in animation, there's women in animation, there's women in television, and they always have, in non-pandemic times, networking events and all those kind of things where you can just go and shake hands and introduce people. So I think in a creative field, it really is about like putting yourself out there and getting as much exposure and experience as you can. And you might not feel like, answering phones or like, serving coffee is like what you need to do. But sometimes that just puts you in the right place and helps you make connections and show people what you can do. Because a lot in creative enterprise is really like showing your ability. So any opportunity that you can take to show, what you can do is really important.
That's, I think, a really important thing to know. And I just thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for all the questions that you've asked. Thank you for the students who've been here. Thank you, Jennifer, for joining us. It's so wonderful to have an opportunity to have this kind of a conversation with you, and I'm glad that you were able to take the time with us. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, just that, you don't know where you're gonna end up in the world. You don't always, not everyone knows exactly what they want to do. I don't think I ever knew exactly what I wanted to do when I was in school. And I ended up, with a dream job that is, every day I'm so grateful. I wake up, I love what I do every day. But I had no idea when I was in university that this is what I wanted to do. And I don't even know if I knew it existed. So you know, after your degree, get out in the world and find things that you love and do what you're interested in. Because if you just keep seeking out things that you're passionate about and interested in, it'll lead you in on a path to find something that you know maybe want to do for the rest of your life. So that would be my advice, I think.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's so many different ways to build a life, and there are lots of different ways to apply the things that you learn. So, thanks again so much, Jennifer.
Thank you, Elsa. Thank you, Janet. That was so nice. I really enjoyed it.
Take care. Thanks, everybody.